Welcome to week 7 of our trauma and emotional healing, and this topic is about meditations and creating unlimited possibilities. We're going to begin with I am aligning with. As you recall, we do have a few new people, so I'm going to reiterate how this works. It's just bringing us back to self, allowing us to be more in tune with self, and so I'm going to say I am aligning with and say your name. We'll do this 3 times. Take a deep breath. I am aligning with. I am aligning with. I am aligning with. All right, let's get this rolling.
Let's get this on the road to doing good today. So, we would like to welcome you again and thank you for being here. We know it's been kind of an interesting week, and you know, a lot of people been being hit with interesting energies, all kinds of stuff.
Go.
Okay. Meditation is not to escape from society, but to come back to ourselves and see what is going on. Once there is seeing within oneself, there must be acting. With mindfulness, we know what to do and what not to do to help. Thich Nhat Hanh.
That's right. Okay. But we hope this doesn't stay choppy. We want to get through this. But okay, so we have cultural norms in our world today, and we need to address what has become normal in our world, but is obviously not healthy. The first one is our false sense of urgency. We wake up to many dings on our phone. We have people that are reaching out to us globally through different apps and emails and text messages, and these sounds give this sense of false sense of urgency. We have to respond right away. People want our attention immediately, unaware that we may have different things going on. This creates this sympathetic response that we have to hurry up and react to our outer world. And we tend to be overscheduled. Children today are in multiple sports and activities after school. Parents are running them back and forth. In our world, people are taking more classes, which is fantastic, but we're also layering it with trying to get as much as we can in a day, where we tend to life hack to keep up with our lives. Multitasking, of course, is causing a number of concerns because we think that we're accomplishing more, but we're filtering our energy and we become scattered and fragmented. And so we really struggle staying on task because we tend to multitask, where our attention keeps going in many different directions. The biggest problem with multitasking is it causes your brain to become very incoherent. It's like the radio signal becomes very scattered and static. And that's why we're talking about meditation, because meditation brings us back into coherence. But in this incoherent state, the signal is very disruptive and our system becomes very disrupted. Eating on the run, of course, many people are going through the drive-thru on their way home or on their way to work and eating out of a paper bag. Obviously, this is not healthy for the gut because the foods that we're eating in those circumstances, but it's not healthy on the body as well. And on this on the go and eating rather than sitting down and nourishing the body causes us to be in a dysregulated state. It's common today to say that I thrive on less sleep, where we almost think we deserve a badge of honor when we have maybe 5 hours or 6 hours of sleep, where we accomplish things through brute force to accomplishments. We're pushing our way, and we have these motivational speakers that encourage us to keep moving and to break through all these barriers and to keep pushing to the next level of achievement. But obviously, over time, this is unsustainable. And ultimately, this world today, we don't have breakthrough until we have breakdown.
Oh, it's working!
Yes.
Hooray! I said a little prayer and it worked. Now, we have lots of potential stress, such as giving a
presentation
lesson on emotional release. Boy, I tell you, we've been releasing emotions. And potential stresses include thermal, heat, cold, wind, humidity, wind, storms, all kinds of stuff. Physical, we can fall, injure ourselves, have accidents, have all kinds of physical difficulties, infections, wounds, and surgeries, chemicals, pathogens, toxins, jabs, medications. On the spiritual side, we can have past life problems that come back and hit us again. Collective energy, like the last 2 years, so much fear and anxiety have hit the entire world. We were all put in fight and flight and, adrenal overload. So it's been a hard year. And, the unfulfilled life, we always feel like, oh, there's something more out there, but we don't know how to find it. Emotional stress, such as betrayal, rejection, heartache, not feeling that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing.
Yes, so all of those levels of stress can contribute to the breakdown of the body. Now there's 6 different levels of emotional stress that we address today. One of them is inherited stress. We're going to talk about ancestral stress and what comes through our DNA from both sides of our family. We also have past life stress, where we have a connection to something, or we repel it, or are afraid of something. And these type of things can definitely influence it. Now, people who have maybe died in a plane wreck, or maybe drowned, or had some kind of traumatic experience in a past life, they have a reaction, an energetic reaction, or some kind of fear around that. Others, emotions. Now, people are showing more and more up in the word empath, and there's more empaths that are becoming much more sensitive today. That's fantastic, but we don't necessarily have the tools to navigate that empathic energy. It's language that we didn't hear 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, very often. But I would say that most people that join us on these recordings and who are watching these type of things tend to have a very empathic energy, where we may pick up energy from other people that isn't necessarily our own. And there's a lot of intensity in the world today. So when there's more intensity, of course it's going to hit us a lot harder than it would normally. And the media is definitely contributing to that. Now, if we have negative emotions in our own world that we haven't let go, and these negative emotions that are patterns because of our thoughts and our emotions and our behavior, we create this state of being that isn't necessarily healthy. And then, of course, unresolved childhood. Now, we've talked about this in the past, but working on this unresolved childhood is always going to give us opportunity to look at. Our childhood, for better or for worse, created who we are today. It impacted us who we are today. And we can look at the challenges that we had in our past, but it's those same challenges in our past that contributed to us swinging the pendulum in the other direction. Say, for instance, if somebody had a very distant parent that wasn't home making meals, or if you're a latchkey kid, you may have feelings where you have to be a much more present parent, where you are much more protective of your children. You make sure you have meals together. This pendulum will always swing in the hierarchy of the family dynamics. And of course, PTSD. We have to address the fact that there is a global state of PTSD. This is affecting the energy globally as well as the individual.
Now, ancestral trauma, and I've dealt with this for years. Part of who we are and the emotions we have come through to us from the experiences our ancestors had. If an animal is chased and nearly killed on a mountain, their lineage will feel emotions of fear and panic on that mountain and not know why. This is in humans too. Ancestors pass down trauma up to 14 generations. That's a lot of generations. Ancestors with financial issues, illness, heartbreak can carry over in our subconscious and be stored in our DNA.
And I think that applies to many people when we talk about family lineage that has a financial limitation, and maybe we were raised to believe that money doesn't grow on trees, or that there's only so much that's available. We have the scarcity mentality. It's a very different language than the lineage of family who have inherited wealth or have resources that have been made available. Now, to look at generational trauma, of course, there is generational trauma in every single person. Our lineages and the history of our families all come from some level of trauma, whether they crossed from the Atlantic, they became implants into the United States, or whether they came from these different cultures that had a lot of challenges. Now, first of all, be willing to recognize that everyone does the best they can with the information and the resources that we have. Let's all accept that even if we don't see somebody at a standard that we would want to be, we have to recognize that their consciousness, their resources, or their tools and information may vary vastly from what you have. Have compassion and recognize that, remember, as we've talked about in the past, how perceptions it's 11/10 of the truth is perception. But what else is true? Because the stories that we hear of our family history are a takeaway from a single person or a few people's perspective, but it may not be the whole truth. Give a voice to what happened in the past, but don't personalize this. Now, this applies to many different cultures. Native American cultures who may feel that their land was stolen by the white people, they carry this heaviness of being robbed of their land. The black culture in South Africa who were kidnapped from their families and brought for slavery, they feel this wounded or marginalized. Or in Rwanda when there was genocide, or in these Asian cultures where there was a limitation to families and where they were forced to have things to prevent new children from coming in. All of these experiences can be very, very traumatic, but they're not necessarily our story. Now, we have a friend that's from Germany and was raised in the school system. She's young enough that all of the things with Nazis and being German, there was this damper on the culture because they are looked at as bad or association through Nazis, but it isn't necessarily their story. Of course, they have family history that impacted it, but it's not them, but they are carrying the energy of that. So we recommend that we focus on the lessons of the experiences. What were the lessons around those experiences? Maybe standing up for truth, or protecting your family, or knowing where you would behave differently under new circumstances, and focusing on that rather than the route for learning or the experience itself.
Now, doing family shadow work, during what's gone on, we have people in our family that did get the vax, we have people who didn't, and those that were, it caused a shadow, and so I had to do the 24-strand DNA in plural to clear their DNA, and do the decrees for putting my world in divine order to clear their energy and put protection around them. And this works. And I didn't realize, but I was told by Saint Germain to do that for my children and my grandchildren, and I did, and they actually improved and came back to being, excuse me, being humans again, which was good. And so we need to learn.
They always were human,
yeah,
but in a healthier state.
Yeah,
we'll move on with healthier state.
So we need to learn the culture and history of our family. Were there any major family traumas that I am aware of or you are aware of? Look into the dark places or family members that were heavily judged. What actually is the real story behind that? Discover gifts that were shared and be an agent of change to break familial shadow cycles of abuse and pain.
That's right. And coming back to the gifts,
yes,
obviously there are traumas in family history. No, go forward. Yep, there's experiences that have been challenging, and we've all had those. But every family also has gifts. Every family also has traditions, or we may have had a grandmother that was very intuitive, or a grandfather that was a healer, or a great grandparent who knew how to cultivate the earth, or how work with herbs or supplements or energy. All of those also came through our lineage. And so we have to honor the fact that there's good too that we can look at. Now, but when we choose to work with family, there's a few guidelines that we would like for you to look at. The first of all is observe and learn about emotional triggers. Now, how many of us have heard of stories of the family gets together for Thanksgiving, and within an hour or two, a political conversation comes up, stories about health or stories about the past, and there's an upheaval. There's an energy discord, and all of a sudden people disperse, and we're like, well, we're never doing this again, and it gives us a free pass for Christmas because clearly nobody wants to get together. Now this, of course, it's kind of a joke or a cliche, but it happens often because people come together as family, and we may have had a history of some trauma bonding, and now it's being activated. Now that person is coming up against themselves and up against the family. So learn about what are those triggers, and then learn to avoid those, or have some kind of awareness to bypass what is a trigger, or to give yourself permission to look deeper. Now we also encourage that you establish a key word that is neutral but familiar. Everybody has, in a family meeting, maybe have a meeting and saying, okay, when we come together, if we have a collection and have a desire to move past the boundaries and the limitations that we've set for ourselves, let's establish a key word that gives each person the right to step out, or to when they hold the talking stick, or when they say, okay, enough. They don't have to go into a bunch of story, and they don't have to validate the way they feel or encourage somebody or feel shame or blame about it. They just use the keyword, and then it's like everybody knows the rules. The keyword could be anything. It could be the word pomegranate. It could be the word Montana. It could be the word computer. But somebody says that word, and the family comes together. Look, we're in this together. We're healing together. So when that word comes up, that means you set down the fight. Another one is to don't go into story and blame, because blame and victim, it's an emotional reaction. It's when you're not liking the way you feel, and you hold somebody else accountable for the way that they may have treated you. We aren't accountable, and we can't change what may have happened in the past, but we are accountable to how we respond to our life now. So encouraging you to take personal accountability of where you're going to show up, and how you're going to regulate your nervous system, and take charge that none of us are victims in our life. Even though we may feel victimized, or even if we may feel that we've been a martyr in the experience, we have to take personal accountability that our field of energy created this. Whether we like to say it or not, it's a hard thing to look in the mirror, but it's our truth. Then also remember that we engage in healing work to soothe the nervous system. Just having a conversation with family can open up the door, but you have to also include healing modalities, and there's some great healing modalities that are out there. You can do EMDR, you can do massage, you can do breath work, or essential oils, or tapping, all of these different tools that we've talked about, journaling, and seeking therapy if that's what is helpful, but things that you can do to soothe your nervous system so you can self-regulate and embrace the conversation from a better space. And it's also helpful that when in a conversation that has some level of intensity, ask and establish, are we problem solving, or are we listening with compassion? Those are two separate things, and I think every husband and wife have had those kind of experiences where one of them is just has this level of intensity, and sometimes, like as a wife, you're not necessarily needing your husband to fix things or want them to have a solution for you. You already know what you need to do, but you just need a sounding board. So be a safe place to land. And or that on the other side of the coin, you may come to the table with a group of sisters or best friends, or or a family and saying, okay, these are the emotions that I've had, these are the story that I remember. Can somebody help fill in those blanks and help me move on in a healthier way? So are we problem solving or listening with compassion? Go ahead. You were doing so good.
I was doing so good. And now I'm going to have to automatically click it. Okay, so hopefully this will work.
That keeps going back to the other direction.
Yeah, I don't know why. Okay, so regulating the nervous system. When we react to small events in a large expression, a lot of emotion, it is a sign of living in the past. And you're going back into that energy that caused problems. And we need to choose instead to stay in present time and not relive our past hurts, our past emotions that caused trouble. So we need to create a habit of a positive response rather than going into the past, worrying about the future. Stay in the present moment. Focus on healing with support tools. In other words, we need to take and breathe when we get in these states and bring ourselves back to center. And that's a very good tool to use. Or tell a joke. Do something that pulls you out of the way you're feeling. We need to focus on these healing support tools rather than getting more heated. And integrate meditation and prayer, because when we do this, it centers us, puts us into the parasympathetic system, and it makes our brains calm down, our emotions calm down. Limit exposure to toxic family members. A lot of toxic family members leave and they never come back. And it's like, well, that's their choice, and maybe they wanted to limit their exposure to all of us. So we need to be loving and allowing, and just tell them telepathically you still love them. Telepathy works, and I've been trained to use it all the time, especially on people who are not hearing what we want to say or what our feelings truly are.
So having a healing support team is crucial if you are working with any kind of history of trauma. Now, I encourage, though, that you only share your traumatic past with someone that is safe, that can hold space for that healing. Unfortunately, it's common when people come together in a waiting room at the doctor's office, or if they have time on the bus, or if they're, their seat next to you on the airplane. Trauma bonding is very common. You both have some association to a past, some emotional dysregulation, and we feel obligated to share it with other people. We want our story to be told. We want to be validated for how we feel. And so we kind of tell it to people that are total strangers or somebody who may not be worthy of hearing your story. So remember, set that boundary that we only share it when we know somebody is a safe person, because once it's out of our mouth, we have no control where it goes from there. And there's some families that have some very dark history with abuse or challenges that is kind of hard for somebody to hear if they're not prepared for that. Friends and family and professionals all can be options for the healing journey if you have a good trusting relationship and recognize they can play a vital role on giving some feedback. Establish your intentions for healing rather than word vomiting your emotional state, which is very common. And the same thing with scheduling time to share rather than using this vulnerability. When we feel vulnerable or emotional tend to be when some kind of trigger, or we feel emotional because we're tired or overwhelmed. And these type of things tend to cause us to get overwhelmed with our emotional state and word vomit on other people. So we hold ourselves accountable that we choose not to do that. Go back.
Oh,
go back.
Back one. Now, create a contract to yourself. Now, we created contracts up before we were born, but nothing's wrong with creating a new contract with yourself here. And no one else is responsible for the way I feel is a very good statement. Because the way you feel is the way you feel, and others might not feel the same way. So be sure and be responsible for the way you feel. I acknowledge that each of us are doing the best that we can under the circumstances in our lives. We're all going through different things, and we've all had different pasts, and we all need to acknowledge that we're doing the best we can. I am committed to my healing process and taking the steps necessary to do so. You know, today we dealt with several people who needed more healing, and it's interesting how things shift as other emotions come up and other things in our past. And so we need to be committed to our healing process and know that things are going to shift, things are going to change, and we need to adapt to those new things coming up and the new changes. Now, I allow myself and others to experience their needs in a healthy manner. In other words, you know, I used to be a cheapskate and didn't even allow myself to go get a massage or any healing modalities. And now I'm more open to allowing others and myself to go get healing. And so we need to take this into consideration. I am not my trauma. It was just an experience. That's another thing you can say to yourself.
And separate yourself from the experience. Now, of course, we're talking about meditation tonight. Meditation is to become familiar with. So familiarizing yourself with your unconscious thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. As we know, 95% of who we are is programmed in the subconscious mind, and we're not even conscious of these patterns that we've created or these thought processes that are in our subconscious. Recognizing that meditation is a time for renewal and self-reflection, where we invite the present moment with full awareness of the intention to calm the mind and calming the body arousal.
Meditation tips. We start with a short duration if healing from PTSD. In other words, only 5 to 10 minutes. Our brain wants to run when we have PTSD, and we don't want to just stop and meditate. But choose to overcome that feeling to run and deal with yourself through breathing the breath of life into you. Believe it or not, it calms you down and helps you center yourself. So breathe. When in a mind loop, say stop and focus on your breath again. It's very important we keep focused and don't let that focus go away because we want to run away and not deal with things. Set your intentions and stick with it. Have a clear objective of how often you're going to meditate and for how long. We choose to do, at least we chose a while back to do an hour twice a day. We've kind of faltered a little bit in the mornings because mornings have become so crazy with kids in school and kids with jobs, and we're always focused on stuff going on, and we need to focus on doing meditation. And if we have to, get up a little earlier. Believe it or not, when you meditate for an hour, it's like getting 6 to 8 hours of sleep. So you actually feel better. So create sacred space for your meditations, a place where you won't be disturbed, a place of soothing energy with different objects around that help you remember. There's ascended beings that are going to help us. There's masters that are going to help us. And that's a sacred space. And turn off your electronics and, you know, put it on airplane mode so you don't get disturbed, and notify others. You're going to limit your distractions during these times of the day.
Yeah, and as far as the sacred space, I want to add with that association. We talked about association and repetition and how it seals in the brain. We associate our bed with sleep, and of course, if you're very tired and your body needs the rest, get the rest. But sleeping and when you go to bed and lay down to meditate, of course you're going to go to sleep very, very quickly. But it's the same thing when you create a sacred space. You know that this area is the meditation area, and your body over time starts to just relax as you enter that space, knowing that the thoughts in the thoughts of the brain and the body and the emotions they already are in motion because of the energy that we're already in motion with. Now, other tips are, don't decide to meditate based on mood or energy. As we know, our mood and our energy fluctuates many times throughout the day. And if we use that as our guidepost of whether to meditate or not, we're not going to do it. So you don't use those as your deciding factor. Approach your meditation practice as an opportunity to surrender rather than another task to accomplish. Now, if you have goals and you give yourself a to-do list every day, don't use meditation as one of those to-do lists, because then you become task-oriented and then you're like, whew, I got 10 minutes in and now I'm done, and then you push it away because you're bypassing the gifts of what meditation can give you. In a meditative state, you surrender, and the goal is to get to a homeostasis, to become heart and brain coherent, and then maintain that level in your waking day. Use tools of support such as nature, candles, guided imagery, or music. Guided imagery is a fantastic tool that can be supportive if you have a very busy mind, and it can help you focus your mind on that. Some people just like to hear a stream of nature, any of those type of support tools to help you get in that meditative state. Recognize, though, that all meditations are going to be different. Even if you had a fantastic one yesterday, today you may take a long time to get into that regulation, or you just don't feel it. So don't set the goal that I'm going to maintain bliss my entire time in a meditation. Rather, see success in every experience and try to maintain bliss for those moments so that you can carry it into your day.
Now, there's two states of being. We can be in survival, fight or flight, or we can be in parasympathetic of creation, regeneration, rebuilding. And so you know you're in survival if you have imbalances going on and you feel constricted. It actually makes your auric field come and be closer to your body, closer to your center. And you're not as expanded, so you're constricted. And a lot of times in survival, you'll have a breakdown. You'll literally not be able to function. So we need to look at the cause and effect and make sure we are not in survival mode, that we start breathing. And it's okay to get out of this by doing a little breathing technique, a quick breathing technique to calm things down. If we don't calm down, it causes dis-ease in our body, and we're creating bad things rather than good things. And so it also limits our possibilities. When we get in the creative or parasympathetic meditative state, we get regeneration of our bodies and our tissues. We expand our energy. And we have growth and repair, and we're actually causing an effect rather than being in cause and effect. We can project out to the universe better energy. We're more in homeostasis, which means our body is functioning in a better way. And we can create all types of possibilities. You know, we were taught in our meditation to go to the void and create multiple possibilities, then take those possibilities, the best ones, and bring them into our body for a better change.
So when we enter a meditation practice, if you haven't already had these experiences, you tend to come up against yourself. There's challenges that are bubbling up to the surface. Our subconscious mind, we're opening Pandora's box, and sometimes it can be very uncomfortable. We have to overcome certain aspects of self when we are in this meditation. Now, our external environment, we have a synaptic connection, and we have a memory of our past interaction of every single thing in our environment, and that includes the people in our lives. And so we have some kind of emotional response or an energetic response to our environment. Memories of our past, our emotional state, our habits and our behaviors, our relationships, and our personal identity fears of the unknown, when we not only have our past that we have that is consuming a lot of our attention, but the unknown of the future can also consume our attention. Our beliefs and the limitations that we have had around our beliefs and what is actually possible in our world, and our drives and addictions. Of course, we all, if you drink coffee, then it's common for people to go to bed at night and can't wait to wake up in the morning to have that warm cup of coffee. I'm that person too. I like to have a warm cup of coffee in the morning, but that drive and that addiction of something to soothe you or to give you comfort, that we're always searching for self-regulation. And then our attachment to time. And in a meditation, we've been to amazing meditation retreats that have gone for 4 or 5 hours, and they feel like there's 20 minutes. And of course, there's times where you try early on in a meditation practice, you close your eyes and you sit and you think it's been 20 minutes, and you look at your phone and you realize it's been a minute and a half, and you're like, what in the world? So the time just has a whole different state when it comes to meditation.
Yeah, and the fact that you put your phone near you means you're worried about the time and worried about getting phone calls. So put it in airplane mode.
Yeah.
Changing the self. Meditation and stillness of the body and mind allows emotions and sensations to rise to the surface, but we're more peaceful and we can look at them from a different perspective. A higher perspective. This can be uncomfortable and make you want to give up, but if we look at it and we want to heal it, and we can use meditation to do these things. So if you learn to sit with the discomfort and observe the sensations rather than judging them as good or bad, you open unlimited possibilities for healing and up-leveling the self.
That's right. But in the process of change, there's a few things to be aware of. We start to have a greater awareness of our unconscious thoughts, behaviors, and emotions. We recognize that we start to see who we've been all along. And, we've all had times where other people see a version of ourselves that we don't see, or we've had times the other side of the coin where you just want to talk to somebody like, wow, if you could only see what I see about you, and you could make some vast changes. But of course, not many people are receptive to that. But that same opportunity is in there for self-discovery. We have greater clarity of our intentions. I think people who start meditating and regulating the body, it's usually because of some kind of trauma in the past or some kind of upheaval that caused that drive. I don't think the average person is going to seek meditation or healing practices if everything in their life is rosy. It's when we have some kind of breakdown where we're like, I don't like how this is going for me. I need to take ownership of my life, and then have greater clarity of intentions of how far you can go with that. Staying in present time more often. Now, science has shown that the average person loses attention between 6 and 10 times every minute. That's a lot, and even in conversation with friends, it's even if you want to pay attention, you don't. So staying in present time, giving yourself opportunity to do that. Elevated state of emotion. We realize how we were behaving before, and we tend to crave a more elevated state of emotion, a higher level of gratitude, of love, of possibilities, of joy, any of those higher states of being. And we tend to recalibrate quickly when our energy reverts to the past. All of us fall from grace at some point. All of us have times where we have a challenge. It's quite a challenge for us to get this going every week, and we come up against ourselves every time, knowing that people are waiting for us. And no matter how much we try to plan around it, we tend to still have challenges. But we know that we have to recalibrate very, very quickly. Take a breath and keep moving forward. And then ultimately, it's valuable that we start maintaining a state of neutrality. Vipassana meditation is one that trains or conditions the learning of being more equanimous, where we're not striving or craving something and we're not repelling against something. that we find that we have that push-pull in all interactions and all relationships. We either want more of it or we want less of it. But if we can maintain a level of neutrality as much as possible, we're not engaging our emotions and our ego with it. We can just see things for what they really are.
Yes, and what we think, do, and feel creates our personality. So if we change what we think, do, and feel to a higher state, we'll change our personality for the better and create a better personal reality. So the average person emits about 20 photons of light per second, which can be picked up by devices. Now, people who are meditating with focused attention on love from the heart emit 100,000 photons per second, 5,000 times the average. So when the photons are infused with love and healing, the frequency changes the matter around you, and you affect the people around you even, creating healing and transformation.
Yeah, this information is from HeartMath, and HeartMath has done an enormous amount of study around the heart field. So in creating heart coherence, again, this is more of HeartMath work, but focus on your heart. Now, most people, when you say focus on their heart, they start thinking about their heart rather than moving their attention down to their heart. So focusing on your heart, and an opportunity you could do if you early on is just place your hand over your heart to support holding your attention there. When you feel the sensation over your heart, you can move your attention there a little easier. Breathe slower and deeper than normal for a few breaths, maybe 5 to 10 breaths. This helps balance the sympathetic and the parasympathetic system, bringing us back into coherent state. Activate an elevated state. This can be appreciation or gratitude, and then include a smile. Just sitting here listening to this, if you do a gentle smile, and even in meditation, it releases those feel-good hormones, and you start to feel better with a gentle smile, and then try to sustain it throughout your day as much as possible. But in this experience, as you try to sustain, radiate the heart energy to love and compassion for self and for others.
Now, doing everything right. You know, we're not always going to do everything right, and so be able to laugh and forgive yourself and change the way you're thinking. We don't always do everything right. And people often say, I meditate, I eat organic, I engage in everything I can to heal, but I still haven't healed. Well, there's a couple of reasons why. A lot of trauma stays hidden in our body, and there could be a lot more than you think. You know, I've had countless intuitives tell me, oh, you got your mother issues. And I kept going, but I've worked on all of them, and I've healed everything with my mother, but then there's always something else comes up. And so it's interesting how we think we're done, but we're really not. There is a soul contract for growth. Now, embrace the journey for deeper discovery of self, because we make contracts before we come here, and a lot of times we're up in the fourth dimension with beings that don't have our best interest, and they make us contract to do very rough things. And so sometimes it's good to change those contracts, and we can do that. And I used to do that for hundreds of people, and I still do. So, but embrace the journey and know that you'll be fine.
The other thing about meditation is we have to recognize that our life is our monastery. Now, we've heard about people who escape their life and they go live in a cave, or they go live as a monk, or they live in a very isolated life experience. But how many challenges are you going to have under those terms? Maybe you may have some discomfort if you're living in a cave and not have cold, be able to regulate or have a toilet, or, the creature comforts. But overall, it takes life experiences that we come up against for us to learn about ourselves. So rather than escaping the life that we have, recognize that every individual in our life, every challenge that we have with our health or with our belief system or our outer environment, are all opportunities to master the self. And if we recognize that we're here to be students of the life experience where we can grow from, then we become the monk in the monastery in our everyday life. Now remember, our brains have a synaptic connection to everything in our outer world. What that means is we have an attachment to those and from an emotional state, and it's all based upon our past. The more intensity, the more those things will fire and wire together, building a higher intensity of that synaptic connection. And we respond to all conditions based upon our past knowledge. But it takes us removing from our environment to rewire the brain. Because if we are having the same conditions and the same people and the same experiences over and over, then we become patterned and habit, and we're operating on that subconscious programming rather than and from a conscious state. So condition yourself to retreat from life and go within. Take a few moments each day and go within so that you can master yourself, and then come back and engage with greater awareness.
Now, mantras are a selected word or sound repeated silently to focus, to quiet the mind chatter. Now, this can be a word. It can be a sound such as om or ang or many different types of toning. And you sit quietly with a few cleansing breaths. So just breathe in deeply and just focus your attention on that breath for about 6 seconds, holding it, and then release through the mouth. Breathe in through the nose. Breathe out through the mouth after a few seconds of holding it. Believe it or not, 3 is the magical number. In through the nose and hold it for 5 or 6 seconds. I like 6 because it's a multiple of 3s, and then release. So sit quietly and begin silently repeating the mantra or the sound of om or whatever you feel best. When your focus shifts from the mantra to thoughts, simply bring your attention back with a breath to the mantra or to the om. Allow the mantra or om to drift away to the nothingness and go into the void to create what you truly desire, the possibilities you desire.
That's right. And mantra meditation, that's one of the things that from a transcendental meditation, if you do TM, you're assigned a specific mantra. And this is something that's kept within, that you don't share with other people. But in that training with transcendental meditation is you start with that repeating of that mantra, and eventually it dissipates into just nothingness. That's where we're going with that. But one of the meditations, I put this meditation in my book as an opportunity to do. I think this is a very lovely one to get us more grounded in the body and have more love for self. And again, it comes with beginning with a few breaths. It's just like when we start at the beginning, I'm aligning with, we come back to self and away from the fragmented, overscheduled world that we have all of this attention on. Come back to self with a few breaths. Then gently move your attention to the crown of your head. Visualize a stream of beautiful pink and white light pouring through the body. And just maintain that visualization of feeling this love and healing energy coming through you. Follow this energy as it processes through the body with every area of the body with an open heart and sending love. Now, if you've had a trauma to a part of the body, or if there's a part of the body that you don't love, or if you have stretch marks from having a baby, or you may have had to have a hysterectomy, or maybe breast cancer and had a breast removed, or an injury, or something that has some association with pain, even if there isn't a physical area, even if it's like a gallbladder and had a gallbladder removed, that energy is still there. The energy we need to feel more love in that area. And so spending extra time on a part that hurts, or a part that they may have had a history of trauma or a wound, is a beautiful way to bring love back to the self. That same part of that body had to endure an aspect or a history of a challenge, and we're bringing love, we're bringing back into a coherence and a more balanced field of body. So this is just a very simple meditation. It takes just a few minutes. Do this a couple of times a day, and it's amazing how much more love we give back to self.
So the crown chakra is our divine connection, and it connects to the higher chakras of the mighty I Am Presence, and our connection to the universe, our connection to the mighty I Am, the universal forces. So the ability to trust our life, it helps us trust ourselves when we know we have that connection, because you receive more truth. You have a moral compass and you obey the commandments. Your faith increases. Your inspiration keeps coming in. You feel more love for humanity and you become more of a humanitarian. And you do more selfless acts of love. Your spirituality increases. Your devotion to the divine increases. And you're at peace with what is and at peace in your body. The sacred truth is, live in the present time.
That's right, because we ultimately are only in one present moment. So the seventh chakra, this powerful chakra, is often called the bridge of the cosmos because it connects the spiritual self to the higher and to our higher wisdom. It's the awareness of that we are a soul living in, or spirit or soul, you can use those interchangeably, but a soul living in a human body, not a human body having a spiritual experience. And when we activated, we live by decisions of the spiritual self rather than the ego self.
Now the crown chakra, when it has emotional deficiency, you lack meaning in your life and you're disconnected from the divine. You usually focus on the past and your future is unimaginable because your ability to visualize your future is not there as much. You feel stuck and you feel a lack of inspiration. Where when you're balanced in your seventh chakra, you're listening to your inner guidance. You do guided meditations or meditations by yourself. You avoid low energy media. In other words, don't watch bad movies or scary movies. And we're in that time when everybody's watching these scary movies.
Or the news.
Yeah, the news is scary enough.
Yeah.
So it's important to study spiritual works. Have a good book full of inspiring stories or inspiration and study those spiritual works. Meditate and pray daily.
That's right. So of course our tool of transformation tonight is meditation. So in meditation we encourage that you set a goal for consistency, so that even if it's only 5 minutes once a day or 3 minutes, maintain consistency so that your body starts looking forward to that. We're building a new synaptic connection. 2 10-minute sessions daily is a great place to start, though. We encourage that that's a great place to start. Ideally, do it as those first waking hours, because the bridge of the subconscious and the conscious mind as we first wake up and as when we're starting to settle in, that's a great creative time. Focusing on breath. Breath is energy and life moving through the body, and it helps carry emotions and it supports us in regulation. Have awareness of your thoughts and emotions, but no attachment to them. We're not who we claim to be, unidentified by an emotional state. And it was pointed out to me yesterday because of trauma that I've had so many times in the past, I've been accused of being a control freak, where I try to control other people. And sure, I do need some level of control because I'm running a household and running a business and multitasking with many things. Not very easy for me to do at times, so I have to try to maintain some kind of control. But yesterday in a conversation, I was pointed out that no, you're not a control freak at all, because I make suggestions, but I don't necessarily have an agenda to make sure that somebody carries that through or insist that somebody in that small paradigm of my own world. So just having that awareness of like, no, I'm not a control freak. I recognize a trauma brain that needs control. I recognize that I want control when I'm in that survival state, but I don't have to identify as that label. So removing that attachment. And then again, as a reminder, don't decide based on mood and energy, because these will always shift.
And they shift really good when you get into a good meditative state. So, tools for transformation, meditation, we need to up-level our meditation. So start out small, know that it's going to shift your consciousness, even if it's only 2 minutes twice a day, but up-level it. You know, each day try to do a little bit more, and don't stop. You never know when you're going to have that breakthrough with your meditation. And when you're starting out, you may or may not have a breakthrough, but keep going. And you may hit a point where you go, wow, that was wonderful. I feel so much better. You need to choose a goal or an intention with your meditation. And each morning and night, spend time in the stillness and visualize in the void. Use creative imagination. What leads up to the goal? So use your creative energies and put them into the void. And look how it affects others in your life. They may say to you, hey, you're looking younger. Something about you's changed. And it's meditation. Practice adding in other senses. In other words, you know, when you're in meditation, if you're having a bad day and you're having a certain mood come up, take that mood and focus on where it's actually coming from and ask the divine, how do I help remove this from my body?
Yeah. So the essential oils that we are encouraging for today is cedarwood and sandalwood. And we encourage, those ones are very healing. They're used a lot in meditations. You can diffuse in your room at night or apply during meditation. Apply on the bottom of your feet, your back of your neck or forehead. Cedarwood is supportive, that helps improve sleep, improves from an ADD or ADHD, if you have a low GABA or dopamine levels, and muscle tension. Sandalwood is supportive for depression, low serotonin or dopamine, Alzheimer's, and it strengthens the pituitary and pineal gland, and it helps with insomnia and restlessness.
So very good, and you can apply it to your feet as well. It's interesting, sandalwood and frankincense and these other essential oils such as cedarwood. Cedarwood's essentially grounding, very good for grounding. And sandalwood's very good for relieving stress and anxiety. So very, very important to use them on the feet, your heart, your forehead, your mental area, and it helps tremendously. The game isn't to end up a good meditator, but to end up free. Because as you free your spirit, you actually free your mind. The game isn't to end up a good Buddhist, it's to end up Buddha. The game isn't to end up a good Christian, but to end up Christ. The game isn't to end up loving, it's to end up being love. Ram Dass made that statement.
From Ram Dass, yes. So in review, meditating is one of the most valuable tools for self-awareness and spiritual growth. Mindfulness and gratitude helps reprogram our cellular memory, and healing requires supporting the nervous system. Meditation supports this healing. So I think we're good and ready for some Q&A. If I can get this on here. Okay, and so addressing inherited PTSD from a parent returning from war. Yeah, so the question is addressing this. We just have to recognize that that kind of trauma exists in the nervous system. We tend to, if you were born after that experience, you tend to have a larger prefrontal cortex in that sympathetic nervous system. You tend to have a quicker response to trauma, or that quicker response that activates the sympathetic nervous system a little easier. It's harder to regulate the system, and you have a higher alert system to other traumas that can happen in the body. Other traumas that can happen in life. As an example, when we hear about Russia and Ukraine, that kind of thing can stimulate a traumatic past memory from the family lineage. And so we just have, we don't necessarily fix that, but we have awareness that it's a contributor to our own nervous system. And so with some kind of past history of a family member that has that, listening to their story, hearing their story, researching, having a deeper understanding of the bigger picture, forgiving when a war experience happened that affected the family. There's many people who lost a father who went to war, or a brother. That there's some forgiveness and some journaling and some spiritual work that you could potentially do. Okay, when someone in the family had things happen to them like rape or incest, and saying this shouldn't happen to a child, so therefore feel bound by that experience and the injustice, they can't quite understand how they might somehow be part of that experience, especially if they don't know about multiple lives. I don't know how to help in that experience. The only suggestion that I have around that is we become advocates for protection. Now, both of us, again, we both have that history in both of our families where there was some, we both of us have had some kind of sexual abuse. And like I said before, it's the same experience that we can become victims of, or we can become fierce warriors of protection. So having an awareness of something that's happened to a past, acknowledging it without putting it in the corner or under the rug. So many times those kind of family history is they don't want to talk about it. We don't want to discuss it. Why bring something up of the past? Well, sometimes people aren't necessarily ready or prepared to do that, and they can go their whole life without ever addressing it. But doing your own spiritual work, a technique that I would suggest regarding that is, if the individual is, whether they're living or not, do a letter of soul to soul, writing a letter. I'm just going to say Uncle Jack as an example. Uncle Jack violated some girls in our family. Now, this isn't my personal life. I'm just using an example. And Uncle Jack is no longer living, but there's a lot of anger and there's a lot of injustice, and people are not, there's a lot of addiction tendencies or behaviors that could lead to unhealthy decision making. Writing a letter soul to soul to that. So start on a piece of paper and say, "Dear Uncle Jack, these are the things that I know that happen, and my perspective, these are wrong, and this is the challenges that you have created in the lineage of this family, and the ways that this has impacted." And say what needs to be told, because we hold those soul memories in, and we have those memories, but they aren't being voiced. So writing it out on a piece of paper, everything that you know about the experience, and say, "Can you please give me some clarity as to giving you permission to move on as a soul," especially if they've already died. Now, again, we're not giving permission that it continues, and we're not saying that it's okay, but we're giving the soul permission to heal and move on as much as the individual that was violated. And then once you've said everything that you need to say, turn the page and start writing a letter. Now, this is written from Helen, so I'm going to say, as an example, Helen. "Dear Helen," and intuitively receive the message from Uncle Jack. And you will be so surprised how much information comes through with that you may not have even had an awareness. Trust the intuition, trust the process, and trust the messages. And then if you have to have a rebuttal coming back and forth a couple of pages, that's healthy. And it's amazing how much gets unveiled. Look at it and give permission that, yes, we acknowledge that bad things happen or traumatic things happen, but we are not going to identify with it. But we are going to have the wisdom as we move forward that we will not allow it to happen again. This same conversation happens a lot with Nazi conversations of like, what would you have done in the 1930s if you were in Germany and your family was a Jew? What would you do? Well, we don't know what we would do, but now we know a little bit of how we would handle if there was some limitation, or when the government infringes upon personal safety, or any of that language around that. We have a little bit of understanding of how we would handle trauma because of what we're being faced with today. I hope that was a little bit helpful for you.
I also use Ho'oponopono a lot, because with Ho'oponopono you first send love to that person, and then you send, you know, I'm sorry that you did this to me, and I forgive you, and I forgive myself. Because a lot of times we feel a responsibility. We feel like we were the ones that caused it. And then, you know, send that forgiveness. And then send gratitude for the experience. Because, you know, gratitude is the ultimate receivership, not only for you, but for that person. And when we're doing it, their soul hears us. Even though we're doing it telepathically or out loud, they, you know, the second we think of them and their name, Uncle Jack or whoever it was, we bring that energy in, and they are hearing us, and they hear us, sending love to them, and forgiveness, and sorrow, and forgiving them, and forgiving ourselves. Then they can progress too, because this not only heals us, it heals them.
Yes, and the next question is, what specific types of meditation would you suggest people use to reduce trauma? I personally, I think Scott will agree, to start studying Dr. Joe Dispenza's work. His meditations have more intensity. He's done a lot of work with thousands and thousands of brain scans, and his meditations, most of them start with some deep breath work to help bring up those lower energy centers, the trauma that's held in those energy centers or chakras. And then his meditations, they're longer, and they tend to have more intensity. And the way he records those, they've done a lot of brain scans that his voice will fluctuate. It'll have a little bit of an echoing, like it's in a tunnel at times, or some intensity, but it can help pull out what is residing in the body. That's a good place to start. If you feel like you need a little bit more gentle ones, then just maybe a sound bath with people that you trust. If you know somebody who can do sound bath with tuning forks or with tuning bowls, that one can also be very supportive. And then just any kind of breath work, and just practice. You know, Joe Dispenza says this line, eyes open or eyes shut. Because whether you're in meditation and trying to balance the body, you still have to engage in the outer world. So practicing through breath work and help pulling those emotions out of the body. But we've trained with Vipassana, we've trained with transcendental meditation, we've gone to a few of Dr. Joe Dispenza's advanced retreats that are week-long events. And I feel like that's the most helpful for trauma out of the body, if you have a different
And
way.
a lot of his trainings are on the internet, and so you can access them there. Now personally, I think when you're first starting out, do Vipassana, because Vipassana is just focusing on the breath, breathing in through the nose. You watch the air come into your nose and down into your body, and then you hold it, and then watch the breath come out through your mouth. And when an emotion comes up or something appears, focus on that as you're doing the breath work, and see what you feel and work on that feeling and ask where it's coming from. And when you feel where it's coming from, just keep breathing through with it with love. And my other favorite meditation is breathing the love of God into the heart. And we can send that to you if you desire. I've got it down on an SD card.
Well, we can just email that.
Yeah, we can email it.
So, okay. Ron said a beautiful statement that is great. So, a photon is defined as energy with no mass. Purity is total light or love. More photons are created during meditation. When external thoughts interrupt meditation, does that create mass or impurities in photons from one's heart, and therefore less photons?
It depends on your intent. If your intent is to clear the negative energies, clear the negative emotions, that's what you'll do with your breath work. And don't worry, because worry's the lack of faith. And so just know that you're clearing things. just by doing the breathing, just by doing meditation. So just be.
Well, yes, and I understand a little bit what you're asking here. I think it's a fantastic question. It's a little bit broad, but so, you know, we have these things where we, you know, if you have a negative thought and you say cancel, 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 and then you say a new thought, like, am I canceling the new thought, or they cancel the old thought? Or, and I think the same applies with the photon energy. But just know that we're all in the process. Meditation is a practice because we never fully arrive with that. And I don't have the data to decide to say that. Maybe from the HeartMath Institute, they might have that data that explains that more clear. But I would not put a whole lot of attention on that, knowing that there's so many energies and elements that create our reality, and keep coming back to self and just keep building what you can. I hope that's a good answer enough for you. But okay, so then we have, so somebody is saying they have a lot of smoke in BC from the Washington fires. I'm really sorry to hear that. Recommend essential oils to help. The essential oils I would recommend regarding the fires, I would definitely recommend rosemary. I would recommend eucalyptus, and I would recommend frankincense. And then any kind of tree oils like cypress or Siberian fir, Douglas fir, balsam fir, any of those tree oils, they tend to help purify the air, but definitely stick with eucalyptus and rosemary are going to be the ones that I would work with.
And okay. Lemongrass is very good too. Okay,
spell out the name of the person whose book you just recommended. Okay, so Dr. Joe Dispenza, it's D-I-S-P-E-N-Z-A, Dr. Joe Dispenza, and there's tons and tons of stuff on YouTube. People have used his work and put, so yes, somebody else just barely put that, so thank you, Vicki. But that's who I would...
Now, another thing with all of the smoke and the inhalants, cordyceps helps protect the lungs. Cordyceps is a type of mushroom, and Cordyceps sinensis, and it's very powerful to help clear out the lungs of smoke and stuff.
Yes, okay, I think we have it. Okay, wait, thank you so much. Oh, I'm going to read this. Pam's very kind. Thank you so much for your beautiful teachings. Personal experiences and growth make such a difference. You're an inspiration. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We really do appreciate it, and I...
Namaste to you.
Yes. Goodness, we have challenges that we come up against, but, you know, we get to practice and keep showing up. So let's keep on going. Go ahead, and we're ready for the blessing.
So we're going to give you a blessing. In the name of the Almighty, I am that I am, the creator of this multiverse, and the great divine director, the bearer of truth to the universe. We give you all a blessing. We bless you that you can take and use meditation and prayer to clear out negative emotions, to clear the body of feelings that are not functioning for you, to clear out dis-ease in your body and find where it's coming from so that you can get it out of the body, out of your soul's body, out of your emotions, and out of the mental body also. We bless you that you'll have peace come to you when you breathe. Peace come to you when you meditate. Peace come to you when you pray. And that you will know that you're speaking with the higher dimensions, the divine, and bringing the divine into your body, into your emotions, into your mental body, into your causal body, into all of your chakras. Bring the divine in, and the divine will repair and reorganize your body to a higher level. We bless you that you will use these methods, and if you haven't ever used them before, learn about them, Google about them, watch YouTubes about them, and we will assist you also. We bless you that you will be filled with the spirit of love and the spirit of the divine. With these, you will create a new and better reality. With this, you'll create a new and better body that is more healthy and strong. by meditating and praying, the divine will hear your questions and your requests, and the divine will respond in kind. If we have unanswered questions, continue asking them until you receive an answer, because the divine will always answer when you're ready to receive. And be open to receive. We bless you with these things, and we bless you with the love of God, with the energy of the divine, because these are what will transform you into a higher state of being. In the name of the Almighty, I am that I am, and in the name of Jesus the Christ, Kuan Yin, Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, Serapis Bey, Saint Germain, and all the other ascended beings of light and love. And we ask the angels, Gabriel, Saint Michael, Raphael, and Uriel, to surround you and protect you as you go on this quest of change into enhancing your lives. So be it. So it is. God bless all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next week is week 8.
Woo!
Wow.
Only 5 more.
Wow. Prayers and emotions. So you guys have a good night. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.